Sometimes a beautiful fabric you fall in love with when you see it, and you give it to stitching, and what comes out is not something as per your expectation. So this is a experience that all of us have had. I'll give you some 10 things that you can take care before giving it for stitching, so that we have our dream outfit. These are some things that you can tell your tailor or take care before you give for stitching. The first one is the fabric readiness. In most cases, cotton and linens actually go through a slight amount of shrinkage before when they're washed. So pre-washing fabrics, especially cotton, linen, these kind of fabrics, pre-washing them before stitching is a great idea. This avoids the post-stitch shrinkage. And also when we are combining 2-3 fabrics, like sometimes for the yoke or for the sleeve, like you have a contrast color, things like that, you will have to wash it also to make sure that there's no bleeding. One fabric doesn't bleed onto the other, so they are compatible or not. To make sure that is checked, you will have to pre-wash it. And the second thing that you'll have to take care is of the lining. Whether you want the product or the dress to be lined or not. In most cases, cottons don't require lining. Silk cottons and silks, yes. And even if cotton, mull or jamdani is very thin ones, if you want it to be lined, we would suggest that you go with mull lining, so that it's very comfortable. The comfort of the actual hand-woven fabric is not lost by the lining. If not, check on 2x1 lining, which is slightly more cotton based with very less synthetic mix. So check for specific material for lining, and also make sure the tailor pre-washes the lining before they use it, because that way there is no mismatch between the fabric and the lining after stitching. And another thing you will have to kind of specify about lining is whether you want a full body lining including the sleeves, or you want only the body to be lined. Sleeve without lining is much more comfortable. So if that is something that you can go for, then I would definitely suggest that. So the third thing that you will have to take care is the prints. What is the orientation of the prints? In vertical prints, where the design is vertical and in line with the length of the fabric, then the measurement for the same kind of dress design, you will need a more measure of fabric compared to a design where it is symmetrical, all directions is the same kind of a print which can be stitched any side. That kind of a prints will require lesser measure of fabric compared to a vertical design or a design in a particular direction, because in which case you will also have to specify to the tailor what is the orientation that you are looking for in the end product. What is the orientation in the body, what is the orientation in the sleeve, whether you sometimes want to play with the orientation where one part of it is vertical, other part of it is horizontal. Those are nice things that we can try when there is a design orientation in the fabric. So but then you will have to make sure you will have to get the required measure when it's a vertical print. It is not the same, like this 2.5 meters or 3 meters might be okay for a particular design when the design is such that it can be stitched anyway, but for a vertical design it might be much higher. So you have to check on this. Coming to the next point, the most important point is the design. What is the design of the end product that you would want? In case you have a sample garment of the same design, nothing like it, please always, that should be your first preference. Give a sample so that it's easy to replicate. But in case you want a design which you don't have a sample for, then if you're giving a Pinterest image or any other image as a reference, make sure you give a full image of the product, the full size one, and also make sure you have a front as well as a back reference if there is some specifications in the design for the back as well. And also mention the cut. or whether you want a straight cut or a A-line, and whether you want a slit and how big is the slit that you would want. Mention all these when you mention the design. And very important, also mention your fit. What is the kind of fit that you would want? You would want a regular fit, or you would want a slim fit or a oversized fit. Mention all that when you give the design, because it's very important for the designer or the tailor to understand what is your expectation is when it comes to the end result. Okay. The fifth one that you will have to take care of is the measurements. This is the most critical thing that you will have to make sure you get it right. Okay, if you are doing a direct body measurement, then you will have to, as I told you before, you will have to mention the fit that you would want. But in case you're giving a garment, sample garment, then that's no issues. You just have to mention where exactly you want some adjustment, some changes from the existing sizing, which make sure you give it in writing in the invoice. Okay. If it is not a garment measurement and a direct measurement, you're giving measurements in just as a text or something, then make sure you mention whether it's your body measurement or the garment measurement. Because if it's your body measurement, the tailor will have to add the allowance depending on the kind of fit that you're looking for. So you make sure you mention what kind of measurement that you had done, so that it becomes very clear as to what is the end sizing that you are expecting. Okay, so thing that you'll have to take care is the finer details. Sometimes these are small things, but they make a whole world of difference when it comes to finishing of the product. Okay, so what kind of piping you want, whether you want piping in your neck, sleeve, what color you would prefer, same color, contrast color, and the kind of stitches you want, whether you want the stitches to be hidden, which means the same color as the fabric, they'll have to use the stitching, and very small stitches they'll have to use. Otherwise, you want a contrast stitching, a bigger stitching, where stitching itself makes it look like an embroidery kind. So you will have to mention the kind of stitch you want, the kind of piping you want, kind of inner finish you want, whether you want it to be overlocked or a French seam, what kind of a finish you are looking at. So one another point, which is a small thing but makes a whole world of difference when it comes to use and convenience, is the pockets. I always prefer my dresses to have pockets on both sides. So based on your preference, mention whether you want a pocket, whether you want pockets on both sides, how deep you want, whether you want it zipped. So make sure this detail is always there as part of the requirements. Apart from this, the things that you will have to take care of, the timeline. Make sure if you have an event or an occasion that you are looking for that dress, then give a buffer, give a few days buffer, and then ask for a date. That way, any last minute delays, you will still be able to handle it. And also have a date where you try the fit, and then there is some few days if in case you need any alteration, then there should be that buffer should be there. And one another thing is the margin. The inside margin, make sure at least there are 2 or 3 levels of margins that are there, so that at later date you want to alter the size depending on our size. Like if you want to make it bigger, then there should be a provision for you to make it bigger. So the final thing would be the costing. Sure that the costing is discussed and documented before you give your product for stitching. In many occasions, what happens is post stitching, there is no way that the pricing can be corrected or changed. So make sure you are on the same page as the designer or the tailor before you give it for stitching. So these were some things that you will have to take care before giving for stitching, so that you have a output or the end dress which you really love and is comfortable for you. In case you see that we have missed something, then do mention it in comments, because it will be useful for everyone. Thank you.